Okay. That. Oh, it's raining. Hopefully that's not going to make the audio unbearable. Testing, testing. Loop, loop. Okay. That sounds like volume to me. So that means... we're good. Okay, we can mute that. And then we can get to the good stuff, which is, of course, the Ethics by Baruch Spinoza. Now, the Ethics was initially written in Latin, which I don't speak or read, so we're going to have to read a translated version. But that shouldn't stop us. Spinoza is no longer with us, unfortunately. Spinoza was a Dutch philosopher, published this book, The Ethics, in 1677, so a while ago. What's that, 350 years ago? It was a while ago. But I think it holds up, you know, it's a bit, maybe, there's been some updates in ethical theory, but I think Spinoza has a good place. The goal of the stream is twofold. First of all, we're going to try to understand the ethics. Now, we're not going to get that done tonight, because it's a long book in 5 parts, and it's very dense and very confusing. I've only read the first 2 parts. I'm vaguely familiar with some popular interpretations of the ethics, but, you know, in general, when you're reading these old works of dense philosophy, you can find yourself in the weeds pretty quickly. The other thing that we're going to try to do is I'm going to try to build this team. Now, I'm not saying this is a good team. This is a team from a draft league that I was in. I didn't do very well in, but I recorded the draft in the first week on the channel. I have gained the ability to record Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And so I thought, well, let's see if we can recreate a battle from the draft league in this format. Now, there's a few challenges. The first is we're going to have to get all the Pokemon, of which there are 12, because we're going to have to get both teams. We're also going to have to figure out what the EVs and IVs are. So I don't know exactly what stat spreads, what teams were used in the battle. All I have is the video replay to work with. But I've gone through the replay and deduced spreads that make all of the calcs that we observed legal. So these may not be the actual spreads, but in some cases they probably are. I mean, these 252 spreads are fairly likely. For most of the Pokemon, I don't know all 4 of their moves, so I believe in battle this Inteleon only used Snipe Shot and Ice Beam. Dark Pulse and U-Turn are just common 3rd and 4th moves for Choice Specs Inteleon. There's a difficulty though, right? Because maybe it wasn't a Choice Specs Inteleon, the opponent just had like freakishly low special defense for some reason. So you know, we work with what we've got, and then we're going to try to recreate the battle. Now, we don't have to do it in one take, because I think that is statistically very unlikely. There's so many rolls, so many crits and stuff that we have to get to happen. We just want to make a series of videos that we can edit down into a seamless-ish reenactment of the battle for YouTube purposes. But I also want to talk about Spinoza. Thankfully, Pokemon's pretty grindy. I have a few of these Pokemon mostly done, so this is just my Latios that I already had. It has not identical moves. It has Surf over Calm-Mind, but I think that's fine, because I don't believe in the actual battle. Do I have another tab? Yes, here. I don't believe in the actual battle. We see the Latios use anything except Luster Purge and Draco Meteor, which is fine, right? So as long as I've got Luster Purge and Draco Meteor, I can reenact the battle. However, if I have accurate-ish third and fourth moves, like potential candidate third and fourth moves, then that will let me think about, from the player's perspective, the choices that they're making. So maybe this Latios could only click Luster Purge or Draco Meteor, but if it had had Surf, it could have clicked it. And in fact, in this battle, because there's a Gold Ingo repeatedly switching into it, I think that having Surf would have been quite good. It would have been still weaker than Draco Meteor into a Gold Ingo, because Draco Meteor is much stronger. And how does this work? Can I see moves? How does one like this? Draco Meteor is much stronger than Surf, and it has Stab, and it's Sultry boosted. But clicking Surf would mean that your special attack wouldn't be lowered, which is pretty good. Maybe you'd still rather click Luster Purge, because it lowers Spidef. I was like, which one is it? Spidef or special attack? But Latios is the Spidef lowerer. Anyway, we don't have to get them perfect, but we're going to try to get them good-ish. There's a few problems. One of them is that Abel is at the door and demands to be let in, so I'll be back in just a moment. Abel, yeah. I don't have my camera on because it is pitch black in the room, and I'm a vampire and I like the darkness, so... Oh, hi April. April may cause some havoc and make the stream end at any moment. So there's no camera, but all you're missing is my kind of gaunt, shadowed face in the dark world around. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. So we're going to start with this clodsire. Now we're going to have to breed a new clodsire because this doesn't have good HP. We could also just use a bottle cap on it. It is 5 IVs. I don't think that the attack stat being maxed is going to be... Oh no, in fact we want max attack because this is an offensive curse clodsire that we're building. We've got the right ability. I'll bring it up here. This is the clodsire we want. It's just max HP, max Spidef, a little bit of defense, and then unaware black sludge, and recover earthquake, liquidation, curse. Since we only need to bottle cap 1 stat, maybe we'll do that. So while I go about that process, let's also have a look at the Ethics by Benedict de Spinoza. The full title is Ethica Ordine Geometrico Demonstrata. I do not know how to pronounce the Latin. And it's broken down into 5 parts. The first of which is concerning God, but Spinoza's idea of a God is somewhat alien. Spinoza was a bit of a heretic. He had a very particular kind of theosophy, is that the word? He had a very particular cosmology that he thought followed naturally from rational thought or something, which we'll discover. I mean, I don't know the details, and that's what we're going to try to learn. I probably won't come up with an interpretation anywhere near as good as the actual literature, because I'm not a philosopher, I'm a scientist, but we can find out. Anyway, part 1 is concerning God. Part 2 is on the nature and origin of the mind. From there, we go to part 3 on the origin and nature of emotions. Then we're going to go to part 4 of human bondage or the strength of emotions. And finally, part 5 of the power of the understanding or of human freedom. So we're building from this very sort of theistic, naturalistic principle of how reality works into concrete ethical principles that I guess we can apply to our daily lives. But if I'm being honest, I'll be shocked if we make it through like the definitions, because I'll be impressed with myself if I can make it through all of this book while also hypertraining a clodsire. But we're going to try. So the book will proceed in a series of definitions where Spinoza gives us his terms that he'll be using, and then some axioms. These are prior statements that you're just going to have to accept are true. He's not going to try to justify them, but he is going to use them in his argument. He will probably say that they are self-evident or that there's good independent reasons to motivate them, but we can be the judge of that. And then through a series of propositions, which are logical propositions in some cases, or the logic may not be immediately clear, which should together build an argument for something, whatever Spinoza thinks. Now, I'm quite partial to Spinoza because I am compelled by necessitarianism, which is not to say that I think I will knock something off the shelf. Not to say that I think necessitarianism is definitely true. It's merely to say that I think that the sort of image of reality that it proposes is compelling and interesting and makes you think. So that's what we're working towards. Necessitarianism is complex, and I'm sure I'll be butchering it if I try to explain it. It's something like the idea that the way that things actually are, so the way that the universe is, the way that our lives are, the way that every molecule in every substance that we interact with and every emotion that we feel and everything that happens couldn't have happened any other way. The only possible way for the world to be is the way that it actually is. And so a necessitarian, as I understand it, will kind of reject counterfactuals. If I say, today I woke up and I had an apple for breakfast, but I could have had an orange, and I kind of made that decision to have an apple, but I actually could have had the orange. It was actually possible that, the world existed such that I had an orange to eat. Spinoza will say, well, I don't want to put words in his mouth. My strawman version of a necessitarian will say, no, you're wrong. If you looked at the world, you'd see that you having an apple was the only thing that could possibly have happened. You might have felt like you could have done otherwise, but given your psychological disposition and the entire history of the universe and everything, in fact, you were always going to have an apple, and then moreover, you were always going to, in the aftermath, think that you could have had something else. Which is an interesting thing to think about. Do I need a hidden ability as Emerald? Surely not. So I've got to think about EV training this clodsire. That's my first goal. And we're going to need to EV train it in HP. Which means we're going to have to find something with HP EVs that I can kill. Here you go, clodsire. Welcome to the team. Yes, you have no EVs. We're going to need to give you a mint, but that's okay. And then we want curse. Curse, earthquake. Wow, your level up move pool is... Oh, I guess you've got all your good moves. Curse, earthquake, recover, and liquidation, apparently. Which is interesting. I'll see what we can give it from the TM. We do have 4 liquidation TMs. Okay, so that's the basis of Spinoza. Let's think about the first definition, which, to be honest, could be as far as we get, because I think that the definitions themselves are a bit confusing, and I'm not trained. I'm not trained to do this. I did do some undergraduate philosophy, but it was undergraduate intro to philosophy stuff, and mostly focused on ethics, which, although this book is titled The Ethics, it may take us a while to actually get to anything that you might think is ethical in a modern context. What we're really going to be dealing with to begin with is kind of metaphysics and cosmology. Okay, we want to go knock out. Can I say the word kill? Like, is YouTube not going to like it? It's in a video game context. I don't actually advocate for like the, wholesale annihilation of Maril and Lechonk. I merely advocate for their prompt lobotomization. But we're a family-friendly channel, right? Or something. Oh, a chancy outbreak. That sounds ideal, actually. Yes, and then we're gonna need to. Are you EV trained? Sprig Sleepy? You should be. Yes. You two are EV trained. Is there anything else we need to train in HP? Maybe. So here's all the Pokemon. I've trained that. I've trained that. These are just like my guys. I've trained that. And then we can go to the team builder. Is Arcanine want HP? A little bit. And it's a bit awkward to get a little bit. Berserker wants HP. I don't have a Berserker though, because I didn't have a hidden ability one available to me. So we're gonna have to get that later. But we don't have to and Pheasantipity and Colossal. Okay. Let's grab those three. We'll use Ogapon as my chancy attacker. We're going to need some more EV items. Pheasantipity and Colossal are both trained in special defense. Oh, all of these Pokemon are max special defense, max HP. Actually, that makes it very easily. I believe I've just given them all the same spread. So we can grab 3 of these funny green rings, and then let the grinding start. And once the grinding, where are all my power items? I must be equipped to Pokemon. Once the grinding starts, once I'm just out here doing some pest control in the local transient population, then we can look at the first definition in part 1 of Spinoza's The Ethics, which is, by that which is self-caused, where I means Baruch Spinoza, I mean that by that which is self-caused, I mean that of which the essence involves existence, or that of which the nature is only conceivable as existent. Now, this is going to lead us into immediately 2 further... Oh, good, you're watching the stream. That's wonderful. That's going to lead us into the... shout out to my lovely Caitlin, a known member of the channel, and all-around wonderful person. Thank you for your continued viewership. So Spinoza has defined that which is self-caused as either that of which the essence involves existence, or that of which the nature is only conceivable as existent. Which begs the question, I'm not sure if I'm using that in the philosophically apt term, but colloquially it begs the question, what the heck is essence and what the heck is nature? Now, has he defined those terms? Not immediately. We may find out, but we can kind of think about what he might be saying. If the essence is some property of a thing, so we have a thing, and we're going to call it self-caused if the feature of the thing, like the essential property of the thing, is that it exists. So, like, the definition of the thing is this thing only counts as this thing if it exists. If it doesn't exist, then it kind of lacks that essential property, and so it wouldn't count as that thing. So, for example, chancy has the essence of giving HP EVs, and if you were to change, well, maybe if you were to change the EVs, it would still be a chancy. But say we changed chancy to have the sprite of Donphan and the name Donphan. In that case, it would no longer have an essential character of chancy, which is that it's named chancy and looks like a chancy. And so we would say that definitionally, that means it's not chancy, right? In a similar way, for something to be self-caused, it has to be something which, by definition, exists. It can't not exist, not because not existing is like too hard for it to do, because if it were not to exist, it would no longer be that thing, right? It wouldn't be self-caused because it didn't exist. Okay, let's grant Spinoza that, right? We're going to be talking about self-caused things, which we can presume are going to be contrasted by externally caused things. So things that are caused by something else, which is most things, right? If you think about like this chancy here, it was caused not by itself, like it didn't just have to exist by virtue of its definition. It was caused by the fact that I kind of loaded up the game, and the game has the code, and I came along to this place, and I found it, and then it spawned. That's kind of why it exists. So chancy maybe is not self-caused, it's kind of externally caused. But we have to be careful not to use our own definitions too much. So Spinoza hasn't mentioned chancies, and he hasn't defined non-self-caused things or externally caused things. He's merely defined that which is self-caused. Okay. Definition 2. A thing is called finite after its kind when a thing is called finite after its kind when it can be limited by another thing of the same nature. For instance, we've got an example. A body is called finite. Now this could be a body in the broad sense, so it might not be a body of a human, but it could be a body of a lake, like a body of water, or a celestial body, like a planet. A body is called finite if it can. A body is called finite because we can always conceive of a greater body. So no matter how big the Earth is, we can always imagine a bigger planet. And then if we imagine that planet, we can imagine an even bigger planet, kind of ad infinitum. And we could do this with other characters too. I mean, we could look at a human body and think about how flammable it is. That's the first characteristic that comes to my mind about the state of a human body. Like, you can always imagine a body that's even more flammable than the prior body. Like, it's going to react even more violently with the atmosphere. Now, at a certain point, that body is going to like instantly just explode, and so maybe we'll never actually observe it in the real world. But at the very least, it kind of conceptually we can imagine just continuously making even more flammable bodies. I mean, a cleaner example would be numbers, right? You can think of any number, and then there's always that number plus one, which is kind of what Spinoza is saying. So, he continues, also, a thought is limited by another thought, but a body is not limited by thought, nor a thought by body. So he's saying that when we conceive a number, say 100, and then we think, okay, but we know it's finite because we can imagine 101, and then we know that's finite because we can imagine 102. It doesn't follow that we can know that 100 is finite because we can imagine flammability. We can imagine a more flammable chancy. That's like a non sequitur. So a finite thing is only finite in terms of itself. Okay, definition 3, this one's quite important. By substance, I mean that which is in itself and conceived through itself. In other words, that of which a conception can be formed independently of any other conception. Now, what the heck does that mean? I'm sure that there are people more knowledgeable than I. Here's my reading, but it could be very wrong. And I think if it's very wrong, my entire interpretation of this entire book is going to be very wrong, because I think he's going to like using the idea of substance. But let's just forge ahead. So, a substance is something which is in itself and is conceived through itself. What does that mean? I mean, that's a bit confusing to me. So, what does it mean to be in itself? My best kind of reading is that he means, or maybe we should look at the other, the kind of second option, the synonymous definition. A substance is something of which a conception can be formed independently of any other conception. So, it's something that we can imagine without having to imagine any other thing as well. So, for example, if you try to imagine a chair, you've got to be careful on this ground, because a chair, like the substance of a chair, does not include wood or the number 4 or, well, maybe it includes that you can sit on it, like sittability. But even that's a bit dubious, because it seems like you could have a chair that, like, hypothetically could not be sat on, and yet we'd still call it a chair. I'm going to take this definition to mean something like a substance is kind of like a platonic ideal of a thing, because that's where my mind goes. It's like the substance of a snake is the platonic snake. It's the thing that's only snake and nothing else. And we're going to say, go away, Aristotle. We don't believe in your like divisibility thing. We believe in platonic objects, and substance is a platonic object. We can imagine it in its kind of pure state without having to worry about components or extra things that might be associated with the thing. Okay, number 4, by attribute, I mean that which the intellect perceives as constituting the essence of substance. Now, we still don't have a definition of essence, but it's being used again. We now have the intellect brought in, which we'll take as like the thinking mind, I suppose. Also that I, the reader, am the intellect in this case, or you the chat, are the intellect. Have you guys seen the controversy of like whether chat is like a fourth person pronoun? And then all the linguists being like, it's not a pronoun, it's just a second person title, but like it's kind of, there's something romantic about chat being a pronoun, isn't there? Like, in the sense that like you have like, you say like I, that's first person, you say you, second person, they, third person, chat, fourth person, it's like for the fourth wall break. The problem is it doesn't actually follow all of the other linguistic rules of pronouns, so I can't say chat said to chat selves that they liked the stream, because chat selves isn't a word, and but it should be, because like myself, yourself, themselves are words that do associate with pronouns, himself, herself. But chat doesn't do that, right? We don't have chat selves. So I'm pretty staunchly in the side that chat is just a title, It's like a group collective. But at the same time, I kind of like the impulse to try to come up with a fourth person pronoun, because wouldn't that be revolutionary? And I like the idea that it was us, YouTube streamers, the bastion of culture, who finally discovered the fourth person. But no. Anyway, By attribute, Spinoza means that which chat perceives as constituting the essence of substance. So, substance is this thing that is kind of pure, the Platonic solid, and an attribute is the thing that makes the substance, the thing that constitutes the thing that makes the substance pure. So, the thing that makes a snake, the Platonic ideal of a snake, is, I guess, that it's kind of long and windy and bites things and all that. And that's the essence of snake. And if you took away that's an attribute of a snake which constitutes its essence. And so we're going to be talking about the attributes of pure sort of hypothetical objects. That's not necessarily where we're actually going, but that's kind of like the impression I would get just reading over this. We've almost gotten off HP EVs. Okay, definition 5. By mode, I mean the modifications of substance, or that which exists in and is conceived through something other than itself. So this is kind of the contrast to substance. Substance is the thing that we can conceive of purely through itself, whereas a mode is something else that some kind of external modifier. So the substance of a chair, the kind of chairness of the chair, is always the same thing for all chairs, right? You have this property of chairness that's kind of eternal and Platonic, and then you have the different modes of chair, which are specific and modify the substance of chair. So wooden is a mode that we can apply to a chair, the substance of chair, to create the actual chair that we sit on. But we have to be careful to differentiate between the mode of the chair and the substance of the chair. That's how I'm reading it. I could be way off. But don't worry, we're still on definitions. Okay. Definition 6. By God, I mean a being absolutely infinite. That is, a substance consisting in infinite attributes, of which each expresses eternal and infinite essentiality. Now, this is, I would say, an atypical definition of the word God. I think that if you talk to people who believe in any given God and you say, "What can you define your God for me?" They're probably not likely to say, "Oh yeah, no, the God is, it's this kind of infinite." They might say, "Oh, God's kind of an infinite being." That's like fair. But then they're going to say, actually, what I mean is God is a substance consisting of infinite attributes, of which each expresses eternal and infinite essentiality. I mean, maybe, right? The kind of Abrahamic Christian theology will say God is infinite, God's omnipotent, God has all these properties. But it seems like that God, the Christian God, also has these specific features, right? God has desires, and God has an appearance, and God has goals, and this kind of thing, which could be otherwise. We could imagine being greater. But maybe I'm misunderstanding the sort of Christian conception of infinity. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Spinoza. So for the rest of our purposes, God is a substance with infinite attributes, of which each expresses infinite essentiality. So an infinite number of kind of traits, all of which are infinite, that you can't imagine some greater version of them, and all of which are essential. They don't have kind of dependencies or extra properties. If we're confused, he gives us an explanation. He says, I say absolutely infinite, not infinite after its kind. For a thing infinite only after its kind, infinite attributes may be denied. So we could say that infinity, which is infinite after the kind of numbers, it's like the infinite number, isn't necessarily infinitely good or infinitely flammable, or, I wouldn't go to the desert to defeat an infinity because I knew it was going to give me infinity HP EVs for my clodsire, because it probably wouldn't do that. I've got to find my, oh yeah, I've got to swap these colors. So you get that. That looks good. Okay. I wouldn't say that, whatever I was just saying. I wouldn't say that you could kind of grind infinity for HP EVs. So, Spinoza says, he's saying absolutely infinite. He's not just dealing with one kind of infinity, because then you might deny infinite attributes. But Spinoza is saying, no, God is absolutely infinite. It's infinite. God is infinite in every imaginable way for every imaginable attribute, which means that it's infinite for all kinds of things. Every kind of thing you could imagine, God is infinite in that respect. Which sounds like a pretty big object, this God. A pretty big... I mean, I guess we can call this God a person, right? Because they are infinite in things such as kindness and humility and, love of Oreos and all this stuff. Every sort of number of infinite attributes this entity could have, it in fact does have, which is good for it, if maybe not good for our brains. So, that which is absolutely infinite contains in its essence whatever expresses reality and involves no negation. So, involving no negation is probably important, if a little bit hard to understand. We're only 6 definitions in, and I'm already trying to hold all this in my brain. Whatever expresses reality and involves no negation. So I guess we're not saying we infinitely lack. We infinitely lack kindness, and we're infinitely kind, right? We kind of couldn't be both of those because they logically contradict each other. And infinitely lacking something isn't the same as infinitely having it. We're not going to say that 0 is kind of infinitely numberless. It's like it has a sort of infinite expression of the attribute of not having a value. That's kind of weird. I mean, all this other stuff until now has been fine, but that's where we draw the line. Okay, so we'll say sure and move on to definition 7. Okay, definition 7. That thing is called free, which exists solely by the necessity of its own nature, and of which the action is determined by itself alone. On the other hand, that thing is necessary, or rather constrained, when it is determined by something external to itself, to a fixed and definite method of existence or action. So there's kind of 2 types of things that he's giving us: the free thing and the necessary thing, or the constrained thing. And the constrained thing is kind of easiest to think about in terms of cause and effect. So if I look at this clodsire, we might ask, does it exist solely by the necessity of its own nature, or was it determined by something external to itself? And the answer is going to be the second one, because it has this specific stat spread. But the reason it has that isn't because it's just of clodsire's nature to have that stat spread. It's because I've leveled it up and I've trained it and I've done all these external actions which have made it exist. So if I hadn't done those things, it wouldn't exist. So its existence is determined by my actions. But we can kind of keep taking steps back, right? Well, what determined my actions? Why did my actions happen? And then you can kind of go down a number of rabbit holes. You can talk about my neurochemistry and my upbringing and my sort of desire to express myself via the channel of Pokemon-based communication and all this stuff. And so, in that sense, my actions are constrained by my desires and the sort of my prior actions, I suppose, and by the limitations of the physical world. I could desire to become a Latios as much as I want, but it would never happen, unfortunately, because the world is unjust, and we can't all become psychic dragons, even though we might want to desperately. Okay, moving on. By eternity, I mean existence itself, insofar as it is conceived necessarily to follow solely from the definition of that which is eternal. Okay, so the definition of that which is eternal is like something that goes on forever. And existence, eternity, he means existence itself, insofar as it is conceived necessarily to follow solely from the definition of that which is eternal. So he's saying that existence, like the fact that we exist, the fact that the universe exists, follows, in part or in whole, from the definition of eternity. So if we allow there to... Oh, a shiny Chansey. Look at that. Hi. Oh, no. Ah! Don't go away. Let's just do a quick save. Cool. And then we'll try to catch this shiny Chansey. Probably like a cute ball. A dream ball. A love ball. I might need those for something important. He's a bit green. We can give him a nest ball, maybe? I feel like a heal ball is appropriate, even though it's the wrong color. We failed. Oh, let's put Latios to sleep. Did you guys... When I was a kid, I was really superstitious about catching, like, special Pokemon. Like shinies or legendaries. Well, mostly legendaries, because I only ever found one shiny as a child, and it was a Geodude in what's the mountain called in Sinnoh? Canalave? No, Mount Coronet. It was in Mount Coronet in Pokemon Platinum, and it was a shiny Geodude. I was like amazed. But have we killed enough? Have we killed enough Chanseys yet? No, we have not. I should put you in a box so that I don't accidentally EV train you. There you go. But with legendaries, what I would do is I got it into my head. I know some people have like the hold B or the like click A or these things, but I got it into my head that the game had like a way of detecting motion and noise. I don't know what mechanism I thought that the game was doing this by, but I thought that like my Game Boy Color was like listening or watching me, or it just had some like primitive motion detector. So what I liked to do was hold really still and go somewhere really dark. So I'd usually crawl under my bed and curl up in the darkness and keep absolutely still and like hold my breath and then click like throw Ultra Ball at ho. And I don't know, I just felt like that had to be the way to do it. You learn in your old age that there's no such thing as the Easter Bunny, and in fact, hiding under your bed to catch a legendary doesn't increase your odds of catching it. But it kind of feels like it should, and so I think we have to support the ritual, even in absence of any evidence that it does anything. I wanted like a little extra dosage of EVs on some of these guys, didn't I? I'm just going 248. I don't suspect it'll matter if I have 1 less HP or 1 too much special defense, because it's always going to be probabilistic, and I don't know the exact EV spreads I'm trying to recreate. So I'm not going to worry too much. Like, I'm just going to grind these guys up to max rather than lopping off the 4 HP like I do if I was actually going to be using it in the long run. I mean, the clodsire probably actually wants a even HP because we're using leftovers, but usually you want odd HP to die to stealth rock in fewer turns. Anyway, so if I found that shiny Chansey, I would be like, sorry guys, I gotta stop streaming because like it's too loud and you're gonna harm my odds of catching the shiny. I'm running out of PP. Does PP restore from your boxes? I feel like there was a game I was playing, and I was like putting people in the boxes. This is a Mewtwo that I got from One to Trade when I was like 13, called Freezer. It's ancient. It's from Pokemon X and Y, and these days if I get like some legendary off One to Trade, I don't keep it. But I've had this Mewtwo for so long. I would never do I only say this because I would never be so basic as to name a Mewtwo Freezer. Like, I've got more culture than that, but I'm not guilty in this case. It wasn't me. I would have called it something good, like, probably Baruch Spinoza or something. You know, this kind of cultured name. Maybe Platonic Embryo or something. That's quite a good name, but it wouldn't fit, so I'd have to call it like Plato Baby instead, which is a better name than Freezer. But also Freezer, I mean, it does fit. It's just like, I feel like half of all Mewtwo's are named Freezer because the resemblance is so glaring to the demographic base of Pokemon circa 2012. Anyway, I think I'm almost done with these guys. Almost, just a few more chances. We caught the shiny. All is well. We'll probably get more over the course of this. I've got the shiny charm, and ambiguously these outbreaks like increase your shiny odds. I think that's true, but I don't know the actual rate of increase. But shinies are decently common in Scarlet Violet because of the overworld. The ability to actually see them in the overworld. Anyway, I'll go on a tangent if I find another one. For now, we've got to get back to eternity, which we had the definition of, but thankfully Spinoza is going to clarify with an explanation. He says that existence of this kind is conceived as an eternal truth, like the essence of a thing, and therefore cannot be explained by means of continuance or time, though continuance may be conceived without a beginning or end. So we have this concept called eternity, which has the essence of eternity, of foreverness, but it doesn't have the essence of time, right? Time is a separate thing with its own essence. And so Spinoza's eternity is a bit Platonic. It's like pure eternity. Without any of the baggage that might come in the real world of trying to claim something as eternal. Okay, those are our definitions. So we're going to be coming back to these words. It's good that Spinoza has made it very clear what his words mean, so that when he starts trying to use the words to construct logical arguments, we'll be able to tell exactly what he's saying. So that's great. With these 7 definitions out of the way, we can turn to the axioms. So the axioms are the kind of fundamental statements. We're going to have to just take them as true. Spinoza is going to probably think that they're true and build from them. But just like in everything, in mathematics and in philosophy, axioms are always a little bit unsatisfying, but they're also always needed. That you can't have any system of understanding that's totally free of axioms. So, okay, I mean, that's fine. Like we accept axioms in mathematics, and we say that mathematics is still pretty reliable. So we can accept axioms in necessitarian ethics. So here's our first axiom. Everything which exists either in itself or in something else. So I think what he's saying is a chair either exists as a chair or it exists as a sort of chair property of some other object. Axiom 2. That which cannot be conceived through anything else must be conceived through itself. So if it's a property of the object that you can't generate it from something else, like that's not a legal operation, then it must be the case that it's conceived through itself, because that's the only option that remains. There's nothing else that can conceive it, so it has to be self-conceived. Axiom 3. From a given definite cause, an effect necessarily follows. And, on the other hand, if no definite cause be granted, it's impossible that an effect can follow. So the first scenario is, if I defeat this chancy, it's true that it will have the effect of giving my team 3 or 4 HP EVs, I think of quite a few, plus EVs for the power items they're holding. However, it's impossible that if I can't give any reason at all, any cause at all, for why my team suddenly gained EVs, then it's impossible that my team would gain EVs. Now, you can imagine a cause which is more kind of esoteric. Like, maybe I didn't get them because I defeated a chancy. Maybe I got them because I hacked the game, or I found some very, very rare, improbable glitch that caused EVs to occur. Even in that case, even in the glitch case, it would still be possible in theory to find the line of code that produces the glitch and identify that as the cause of the EVs that I gained. What isn't possible is just totally randomly gaining EVs with absolutely no reason at all. There's no such thing as a kind of uncaused effect. Now, we're quite willing to grant it. In fact, this is kind of the principle of modern science, is that everything that we see has a cause, everything that exists has a cause. It's going to lead us into kind of the early stages of a cosmological argument, the Kalam cosmological argument, which is going to say everything that exists has a cause. The universe exists, therefore the universe has a cause, and that's often used by theists to argue for some god, right? Well, the universe was caused, it didn't just kind of randomly happen, we didn't just like have the Big Bang for no reason at all. There was a cause for the Big Bang. Now, I'm kind of willing to grant it, I don't know that it follows that we get a kind of classical Abrahamic God out of that. We just get the fact that there was some cause for the universe. But Spinoza certainly agrees with this, right? He's going to say, yes, the fact that there was an effect generated, which was the Big Bang, means axiomatically there was a definite cause of that event. Now, we don't know what that definite cause was, but it couldn't have just kind of happened for no reason. Like, there had to be some 4. I'm so close. Okay. If we're happy with that, we can move on to axiom 4. The knowledge of an effect depends on and involves the knowledge of a cause. So we can't kind of understand an effect without understanding the thing that produced the effect. So in the case of like my colossal leveling up there's no way to kind of understand what leveling up means without some idea of the cause of leveling up, which is gaining XP. If we tried to define leveling up without any account of the ways in which you level up, then we would have a kind of incomplete knowledge of that particular effect. Okay, axiom 5, scroll down. Things which have nothing in common cannot be understood the one by means of the other. The conception of one does not involve the other. So this is kind of the opposite of number 4. In this case, we have two things that are unrelated. They don't have anything to do with each other, and they have nothing in common. Because they have absolutely nothing in common, there's no possible way where understanding object A would help us understand object B, because they've got nothing, absolutely nothing in common. They're totally unrelated. So an effect and its cause can't be things that have nothing in common with each other, because one thing they have in common is that one effect causes the other. Okay. Axiom 6. A true idea must correspond with its ideate or object. So what we're saying is, if we have some idea in our mind and we want to say it's true, like it really is the case that this idea is real or is meaningful, then there must be some corresponding thing in reality that exists that matches with the idea that we have. So if I have the idea of a chancy, that idea must, the sort of imagination of a chancy I have in my brain, in order for it to be true, must correspond with a real chancy that I observe in the real world. Now, I'm not saying that there are like actually chancies. Like if a trainer I haven't fought. Should I do this? Let me get someone a bit more iconic then. Mewtwo. Oh wait, I can't do this because it will give me EVs. I'll be back for you once I've completed. Have I completed? I might have completed my EV training. Yes, for these two. Not quite for Colossal. Okay, we'll finish up with Colossal and then. Where are we going? West. This way. It doesn't. I'm not saying that chancies like exist in the real world and you could touch them, but like this thing I'm looking at is pixels on a screen, but it is kind of real. Like there really are. Excuse me, Chansey. He just decided to go invisible and then vanish. There really are pixels on this screen that correspond with Chansey. Okay, and then finally, axiom 7. If a thing can be conceived of as non-existing, its essence does not involve existence. So this, if you've been following the rest of the kind of argumentation, kind of makes sense. We're saying that the essence is the thing that makes something itself. It's the Platonic ideal. It's not a part of the essence of a chair that the chair exists. Existence is kind of a property and a mode of the chair. But you could have a chair that doesn't exist. In fact, there's kind of an infinite number of chairs that don't exist. In the world, you can imagine lots and lots of different chairs, Some of them might exist. I'm sitting on a chair right now, which I can imagine and probably does exist. However, if you try to imagine the chair that I'm sitting on, I guess if you've seen me with the camera on, you will have seen the chair. But there'll be some sense in which the chair that you imagine doesn't exist. Like, especially if you're just watching this stream and I don't have my camera on, so you can't see the chair. In that case, the chair that you have in your brain that corresponds with the kind of invisible voice that is me doesn't exist. At least not exactly as you imagine it, which is okay. It's kind of nice that by mere virtue of me streaming this lovely Pokemon grinding session, we're done. Look, we're done. Just check which little bonus EV each of these guys needs. You want defense. You want special attack. And you want also special attack. Okay. And then we'll quickly grab those. Special attack for you. I can see that these are slightly weird sets, but this is a draft league battle, so the Pokemon are kind of EV'd to deal with very particular opposing teams. So substandard EVs are pretty normal, and because you usually play on Pokemon Showdown, you don't have to actually manually go through and find your different EV items and give them. Is that what I want? The power weight? No, I want the defense one. It's orange, right? The defense one. I'm pretty sure it's orange. Here, my Thundurus has it, but I want Clodsire to have it. That's correct. Yes, defense. Perfect. Let me defeat one more Chansey. Yeah. So come back to Spinoza. So most things, if we can imagine it not existing, we can imagine a Mewtwo that doesn't exist. We can imagine a Chansey. Or we can see lots of Chanseys that do exist, but there's lots of other Chanseys that could have spawned in slightly different places that don't exist. So we're going to say that existence is not an essential property of a Pokemon or a chair. It's quite possible that you or I could not exist. I mean, if things had gone slightly differently in history, we probably wouldn't. The chance of you existing as you are is very, very low from a pure biological thing, because there are very, very many possible combinations of chromosomes that you can inherit from your mother and your father. There's recombination in half of them, so there's even more kind of variation and random variation. And then the actual you that you are is determined by which sperm cell happened to make it to the particular egg that was available at the time of conception. And it's pretty random. There's millions of sperm cells available, all with slightly different genetic components. And then you have developmental mental things, and you have your upbringing, and you have all of history and all of sort of evolutionary time that brought you to a point where you could be a human with a human genetic assemblage instead of a protozoan or a mushroom or a parasitoid wasp. So it's very, very probable, in fact, that you weren't going to exist, but you happened to get just absolutely incredibly lucky. Every single one of your ancestors for the last 4 billion years? No. 2 billion years? Billions of years. They all had to successfully have children with specific chromosome compartments and it just so happened that it produced you. But of course, it was always going to produce someone. They wouldn't necessarily have been exactly you, but the chances of you were as good as anybody else. It's not like you were less likely than some other option. It's just that there were billions of options, and you were the one that happened by random chance to be chosen. So, in conclusion, your essence and my essence did not include and do not include existence. It's not an essential part of our being that we exist. And so the question that I think Spinoza is going to ask is, what things do have this property? What things actually do have the essential character of existing? So, we're done, finally, with the axioms, and we can finally move on to the argument. Now, I'm sure everyone has been following very attentively and knows exactly what's going on. If you've actually studied Spinoza, you've studied this kind of writing, you probably have a better idea of what's going on than I do. But I hope you'll enjoy the ride and enjoy my process of discovery. I've been recently really enjoying the video game Blueprints. It's a great video game, great puzzle game. Ditto raid. We can defeat that. And I've been watching the YouTube channel Cracking the Cryptic, which is a wonderful variant Sudoku-based YouTube channel, which I'm partial to. Play through Blueprints, and it's been incredibly compelling. I'd highly recommend going to watch those VODs and staying tuned, because it's just a really nice game. And when I first started watching it, I was kind of like along with the ride for the mystery, and nothing quite made sense, and it was all, oh, right, imposter. They're me. It was all confusing, and then I played the game and I kind of overtook them, and then suddenly I understood all the puzzles, and oh, I got frozen. Well, we might lose this raid. Oh no, we thawed out straight away. I understood all the puzzles, and they didn't, and so I was kind of watching on from a position of superior knowledge suddenly. But that's enjoyable too. It's just enjoyable in a slightly different way, because now it's kind of tense, right? Rather than exploring the mystery with them, you know what they need to find, and you're just waiting for the moment when they find it. But they get real close, and they're like, oh, I don't know, and you're like, oh, if you just thought a little bit more, or you did this, or you did that. That could be the same thing that's happening with us if you are well versed in the philosophy of Spinoza. You might be kind of screaming at the screen, saying, how could you miss that? Like, when he says essence, he means something much more specific than sort of the essence as you're defining it. You're being far too kind of vague with essence. Spinoza has a very particular idea in mind, to which I say he should have made it clearer what his idea is in his writing, if he wanted that to be conveyed to me. Okay, anyway. Proposition 1. Substance is, by nature, prior to its modifications. And the proof for this is, Spinoza says, it's just clear from definitions 3 and 5, which we can go check out. So we have definition 3, substance is that which is in itself and conceived in itself. And 5, he means modifications of substance, or that which exists and is conceived of something other than itself. That seems pretty fair to me. He's defined a mode, a modification, as something that applies to an already existing substance. So I don't think we can complain too much about proposition 1. Proposition 2. Two substances whose attributes are different have nothing in common. He says this is also evident from the definition of substance. Because substances exist in themselves and are conceived through themselves, the conception of one doesn't imply the conception of the other. And all a substance is the conception of itself, because we haven't given it a mode, haven't modified it in any way. So that checks out. This is also kind of just like a extrapolation from the definition. It checks out to me. I don't know if it actually checks out to like real logicians or whatever, but it passes the sort of Henry sniff test, which is all you're going to get in this video. Proposition 3. Things which have nothing in common with each other cannot be one the cause of the other. Now this is pretty straightforward given our definition of things that have things in common with each other. The proof is that if they have nothing in common, it follows that one can't be apprehended by means of the other, and therefore can't be... focus / Heracross. But Heracross is so ruined by Goldingo. Immune to fighting, quadruple resist bug, resist like all of its stab, all of its coverage. This Heracross is never gonna do anything to me. Also, I'm like a max EV, IV, level 100 Goldingo, and this is just some random trainer. But I digress. Proposition 4. Two or more distinct things are distinguished one from the other, either by the difference of the attributes of the substances, or by the difference of their modifications. So, if we have two things that are distinct, they could be sort of intrinsically distinct, like they're just different things because they have different substances, or they could have the same substance but different modifications. They could both be a chair, but one of them is like a lawn chair, and one of them is like the chair in a spaceship that is designed to survive many G's of acceleration. Both are chairs, but they're distinct from each other. The proof for this claim that Spinoza gives, is that everything which exists either in itself or something else. That's axiom 1. And it follows from definition 3 and 5, nothing is granted in addition to the understanding except substance and its modifications. So everything that we can kind of be is either a substance and conceived of through itself, or a modification of a substance and conceived of through that substance. Nothing is, therefore, given besides the understanding by which several things may be distinguished one from the other, except the substances, or, in other words, see axiom 4, their attributes and modifications. So if we're going to try to tell two things apart, we're either going to be looking at, well, are they different Pokemon, or we're going to be looking at, are they like unique individuals? So like these Rufflet can be distinguished from these Flittle by virtue of their intrinsic Rufflet versus Flittleness, but they can also be distinguished from each other by their unique ID and their unique EVs and their unique nature and all this stuff that kind of creates a distinct Rufflet on the screen. Proposition 5. There cannot exist in the universe two or more substances that have the same nature or attribute. Proof? Well, if we're going to have multiple substances, we have to distinguish them from each other either by the difference of their attributes or the difference of their modifications. If only by their attributes, it will be granted that there can't be more than one with an identical attribute. So if we have two things and we're distinguishing them by just their sort of intrinsic properties, so just like what Pokemon they are, then we can't say that there are two different Pokemon called Phalanx on that alone, right? Because the only criteria with which we can tell this Phalanx apart from this Phalanx is its phalanxness, but they both have the same phalanxness, so they must just be the same Pokemon called Phalanx. However, if the difference is if we tell them apart by the difference of their modifications, so what EVs they have, where they are, nature, all this stuff, then because substance is naturally prior to its modifications, this is proposition 1, so substance comes first, it follows that once we set the modifications aside, and consider just the substance, there still can't be one substance different from another. So we can have different modifications to a phalanx, but that doesn't mean there are actually two different phalanx. What we're saying, therefore, is that there can only be one single substance in that case. Cool. Proposition 6. One substance can't be produced by another substance. Let's quickly have a look at this clodsire and see what we need to do. We need to teach it curse. Curse, earthquake, liquidation, recover is the moveset. We're after. I'll see if we can just use some TMs. I have no sense of like the TM order in this game. When I play like Gen 3 ROM hacks, I know exactly where each TM occurs within the context of the list, but in this game, I'm just kind of like randomly should just sort by alphabetical. So we need curse and recover. I wonder if those are even TMs. Egg moves are the most annoying thing, but they're not too bad now, I think, because we can just get anything with curse and then give our clodsire a mirror herb. But let's go check first if they are TMs. Okay, so proposition 6 from Spinoza is one substance can't be produced by another substance. Proof. It's impossible that there should be in the universe two substances with anything in common between them. We've established that as proposition 2. And therefore, by proposition 3, one of the substances can't cause the other, because then they would have something in common, and so they wouldn't be distinct substances. So, no substance can cause any other substance. The corollary of this, according to Spinoza, is that it follows that a substance cannot be produced by anything external to itself. So, because a substance can't produce another substance, the only thing that can produce a substance is the substance itself. 4. In the universe, nothing is granted save substances and their modifications, as we've established. Those are the only kind of two things that exist. Now, by the last proposition, substance cannot be produced by another substance, therefore, it can't be produced by anything external to itself, QED. This is shown more readily. He says, well, maybe you're not convinced, I think it might be an egg move recover. What about curse? Where's ghost here? Curse. We need to find some Goliath, okay. Where did Goliath live? That is an interesting question. It's embarrassing having to use A to Z in the Pokédex, because if I was a true gamer, I'd just know the order, but I do not know the order of the regional Pokédexes in these games. Was Goliath in the base? In base Scarlet and Violet? No, it's in one of the DLCs. Maybe it was in Blueberry? Blueberry had black and whitey things, I feel like. Yes. Where do you live? Canyon and Polar. Okay. We're going to have to go defeat some Goliath. Anyway, Spinoza has given us an absurd, contradictory statement to drive home his point that substances can't be produced by other substances. because if a substance would be produced by an external cause, so by some other substance, the knowledge of the substance would depend on the knowledge of the cause, which is the other substance. And because axiomatically, what's axiom 4? No, axiom 4 is that, let's scroll up, make sure we do our due diligence. Axiom 4 is that the knowledge of an effect depends on the knowledge of the cause. So in order to understand the caused substance, we'd have to understand the prior substance as well, which by definition 3, up here, it would not be substance, because a substance is that which is in itself and is conceived through itself. So of course it can't be caused by some other substance, because then it wouldn't be a substance at all. It would be a modification of the causing substance. Okay, sure. Proposition 7. Existence belongs to the nature of substances. So earlier we said that existence doesn't belong to the nature of things like humans or Pokemon. There are conceivable ways for humans and Pokemon to not exist. You can imagine a person who could have existed but didn't. Maybe they were going to... What's a good person who could have existed? Maybe if Wolfie Glick, famous Pokemon player, had won the previous World Championships, there would have been a ripple-on effect, a kind of butterfly effect that would have brought into existence a different cohort of people. Because, you know, when Wolfie wins the World Championships, the kind of crowd goes wild. People might, change their schedules, change their life. That might change when they conceive children. And if they conceive the children under the changed circumstances, well, in that case, Wolfie winning the World Championships last year, I mean, he has won it twice, and that probably has caused people who could have not existed to exist. Has he won it twice? No, he's won it once. He's not indisputably the GOAT, I suppose. Sorry, Wolfie. Although he's still definitely disputably the GOAT. He could have won the World Championships, and then a new set of people could have existed. Is it a shiny Excadrill? No, it's just a normal Excadrill. But he didn't, and so those people don't exist. But, unlike the case of people in Pokemon, substances... Oh, this Golett just defeated Spinoza in head-on battle. But surely it won't be able to defeat Frieza. Haha. Substances do have the property of existence. There's no sense in which a substance could exist but actually doesn't. There's no possible substances. The fact that something is a substance means, by definition, that it exists. Because if it didn't exist, it wouldn't be a substance. Okay, and the proof of that claim, which seems like kind of a tough claim, because I feel like I can imagine substances that could exist but don't, but then I'm not confident at all I can imagine substances in the way that Spinoza is trying to define them. The proof for this follows from the corollary of Proposition 6 above, that substances can't be produced by external forces. They can only be produced by themselves. They can't be they can't have some cause that is external to them. Therefore, the the essence of a substance necessarily involves the existence of that substance, because they kind of cause themselves to exist. That they're not caused by external things, they're caused by themselves. And so the fact that they exist makes them exist. Their essence necessarily involves existence. This one is definitely the hardest one for me to buy, even though I can see how it flows from the prior... hardest one for me to buy so far. I can see how it flows from the prior postulates. I can see how he's getting it, but it feels like we've suddenly made a leap. Or like this is where my intuition is starting to scream at me. That doesn't make sense, because I feel like we've previously said that things kind of can't randomly exist. Things only exist as when they have a cause. And the scientist in me kind of wants to agree with that, but now we're saying that things can cause themselves, and not only that, substances always cause themselves, and they cannot be caused by external things. It feels to me like if that's the definition of a substance, that substances can't exist. Like it seems like everything has to be caused by something external to itself. But I can see a pretty easy counterexample to that, which is that it's kind of the who's the first mover, the Plato thing again. If I'm going to say that like everything must be caused by something external, like they can't be caused by themselves, then, well, nothing can, like, you've got a kind of infinite regress of causes, right? You're never going to get to the beginning, because every single thing that you go to is going to have a prior external cause, and so there has to be some starting point, something that's caused by itself, or existence is just a property of it, such that the fact that the thing is the thing makes it exist, kind of forces it to be. Then I suppose we're going to grant that existence belongs to the nature of substances, but it suddenly seems like being a substance is quite a big deal. Like not just anything can be a substance. Like I've been using like chairs and phalanx as examples of substances, but they have external causes. What does it take to truly be a substance? Well, Spinoza is going to make substances even more difficult to be. With proposition 8, every substance is necessarily infinite. So the substance of a thing is an infinite sort of an infinite essence of the thing. The proof is there can only be one substance with an identical attribute, so we can't have two substances that have anything in common, and existence flow from their nature. Its nature, therefore, involves existence, either finite or infinite. So there are kind of two ways you can exist. You can either exist in a finite sense, or you could exist infinitely. But we know that it doesn't exist as finite, because, remember definition 2, it would then be limited by something else of the same kind. So earlier, a while ago now, we said that something is finite if you can always imagine a bigger thing. So 100 is a finite number because we can imagine 101, and then we can imagine 102, and then we can imagine 103. The problem for substances in this case is that there can only be one of a substance, and they can't be caused by other things. So, if we had a substance that was finite, and we could imagine a bigger substance, well, that substance would have to exist, because existence is part of the nature of substance. So, that would mean that there were two of the same substance, with one being bigger than the other, and that is impossible, because substances can't have anything in common. So, as Spinoza puts it, there would be two substances with an identical attribute, which is absurd. Therefore, substance exists as infinite, QED. We do get a couple of notes here. Note 1. As finite existence involves a partial negation, and infinite existence, so a partial negation meaning 100 is finite because it has 100 of a number, but it doesn't have 102 or 103. We've got this negation at the end where we don't have some part of the attribute. Finite existence involves partial negation, but infinite existence is the absolute affirmation of the nature. It follows, just from proposition 7, that every substance is necessarily infinite. Okay, note 2, and this is important. No doubt it will be difficult for those who think about things loosely and have not been accustomed to know them by their primary causes to comprehend the demonstration of proposition 7. For such persons make no distinction between the modifications of substances and the substances themselves, and are ignorant of the manner in which things are produced. Now, I got a Herb Mystica for that. I confess it is difficult to comprehend the demonstration of proposition 7. I think that we're talking about infinite quantities of substances. I'm struggling. It's a struggle to do this. And Spinoza says that's because I think about things too loosely. If I just sort of tightened up my thinking, I wasn't so kind of laissez-faire, blah blah blah, loose about my thoughts, then I wouldn't have this difficulty. If I was a bit more of an intellectual like Spinoza, but alas, I do find it hard to distinguish between the modifications of substances, and I'm a bit ignorant about the manner in which things are produced. And so, hence, they and I may attribute to substances the beginning which they observe in natural objects. So when I look at a natural thing, when I look at a tree, well, it has a beginning, right? The tree sort of started to exist. Those who are ignorant of true causes make complete confusion. They think that trees might talk just as well as men, that men might be formed from stones as well as from seed, and imagine that any form might be changed into any other. So also, those who confuse the two natures, divine and human, what the heck, the two natures, divine and human? This is new. This is news to me, but Spinoza is laying it on us. Those who confuse the two natures, divine and human, readily attribute human passions to the deity, especially so long as they do not know how passions originate in the mind. Now, I'm not sure that I know how passions originate in the mind, so maybe I do confuse the two natures, divine and human. But if people would consider the nature of substance, they would have no doubt about the truth of proposition 7. In fact, this proposition would be a universal axiom and accounted a truism. So a truism is like, what's the classic one? How big is that Pokemon? Oh, it's a Skarmory. It's real big. Truism is like, all bachelors are unmarried. And that's a truism because, like part of the definition of being a bachelor is that you're not married, or squares have four sides. Like, yeah, squares have four sides. If it doesn't have four sides, it would be a different shape. It's a truism. So too is proposition 7, which says that every substance is necessarily infinite. That is kind of just as obvious and as much of a truism as squares having four sides. Okay, so we can continue. 4. By substance would be understood that which is in itself and is conceived through itself, that is, something of which the conception requires not the conception of anything else, whereas modifications exist in something external to themselves, and a conception of them is formed by means of a conception of the thing in which they exist. So this whole chapter feels a bit like people have read Spinoza, and they've kind of hit this point like I do, and been like, well, hang on, I was kind of with you up until now, but like now you're saying that all substances are infinite? Like it feels like a leap. And Spinoza's like, you poor small-brained little creature. if you just thought more about the nature of substance and of essence, like you'd see that this is obvious. Like this isn't even like the tricky stuff yet. This is just like setting the groundwork. This is a kind of like Renaissance shade, I suppose, on Spinoza's philosophical opponents. Therefore, he continues, we may have true ideas of non-existent modifications. So, we might conceive of a shiny player character in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It doesn't exist. You can't get a shiny player character, but we can kind of conceive of it. We can't have true ideas of non-existent modifications, for although they have no actual existence apart from the conceiving intellect, the mind, their essence is involved in something external to themselves that they can be conceived through it. So the reason that we can conceive of a shiny player character despite it not existing is that we can imagine shininess and we can imagine the player character, and we kind of know what those words refer to and what they're talking about. And that's because they're modifications of some more essential substance. Whereas the only truth that substances can have, external to the intellect, so in the actual world, must consist in their existence because they are conceived through themselves. So the thing that creates them is also them. So there's no sense in which you can have a substance that you can imagine that isn't actually real. Because if you can imagine it, then it kind of must exist. Because the act of it being imaginable is enough to make it existable. I don't know what the word is. Yeah, okay. Sure, we follow. Therefore, for a person to say that he has a clear and distinct, that is, true, idea of a substance, but that he isn't sure whether the substance actually exists, would be the same as if he said that he had a true idea, but he wasn't sure whether or not it was false. So I have this idea, I think that 1 + 1 = 2, and it's true, but it might be false. I don't actually know. By saying that it could be false, I'm contradicting myself, because the fact that it could be false means that it isn't true. It isn't always true. Similarly, for substances. And in fact, Spinoza says in brackets, a little consideration will make this plain. Or, if anyone affirmed that substance is created, it would be the same as saying that a false idea was true. In short, the height of absurdity. It must then necessarily be admitted that the existence of substance as its essence is an eternal truth. And we can hence conclude by another process of reasoning that there is but one substance. I think that this may profitably be done at once, and in order to proceed with the demonstration, we must premise 1. The true definition of a thing neither involves nor expresses anything beyond the nature of the thing defined. Hang on, let me teach my clodsire curse. In fact, why don't we wrap up here? Because what we're just about to hit, I mean, I'm kind of leaving you on a cliffhanger, right? Spinoza suddenly says, I thought we were like dealing with lots of substances, right? We've been talking about like substances causing each other, there being lots of substances. But no, Spinoza says, in fact, there's only one. There can only be a single substance. Does that... He's kind of done this bait and switch on us a little bit. Can that be true? Do you think that there can actually only be one substance, or could there be multiple? Well, Spinoza is going to tell you that there can only be one. And spoilers, that substance that he's imagining is God. That what we're building towards in this segment is the kind of QED, the substance of reality is God, is Spinoza's God. And that's what we're going to be building to and then building from, which is an interesting idea, right? Because we have all these things about substances, right? They can't be created by other things. They're created by themselves. They cannot be, we have these premises which are like substances can't have anything in common with each other, which are actually only preludes to the true statement, which is that there can't be multiple substances at all. There's only one. And that substance is God. And everything else that we know about God is going to flow, in Spinoza's view, from the definition of substance that he's given, which is very interesting, right? This is not how most kind of theistic, like apologetic theistic arguments want to get to their God. They want to kind of start with some God and then prove why that exists. Some God with traits and history and things that it's done and this kind of thing. Whereas Spinoza says, oh no, we don't need any of that. God is just substance, and substance is this very, very basic thing. What he's also going to be arguing is that everything that exists, because things only exist as substance or modification, all of reality is merely modifications of the one substance which Spinoza calls God. And so there is only the infinite God, I suppose. But remember, we're going to be linking this into like human ethics and all this other stuff. And I've only read so far ahead, so I don't know how he's going to do that. Find out next time. The next version of the stream could be never, because I'm mostly recording it due to my manic state at the moment, where my emotions are spiraling all manner of ways. So this might be a one-off thing, or I suppose if there's like mass appeal and everyone really loves the confluence of Spinoza and slowly grinding a clodsire. I mean, I haven't been doing a very good job of creating this clodsire, but I'm getting there. All I need, I have the EVs, I have the IVs. I can give it a black sludge, which is the item it wants. So in real Pokemon, in like ladder or in a tournament or whatever, you usually want leftovers rather than black sludge because you might want to terrestrialize. And if you terrestrialize and you're no longer a poison type, then your black sludge is suddenly damaging you. It is still better against Trick and against Switcheroo and Thief, I guess, this kind of thing. But because terrestrialize is so important, leftovers are usually better. However, this is a draft league where you designate a Terra Captain, and Clodsire is too strong to be a Terra Captain. Terra Captains are lower tier Pokemon, so Clodsire can't terrestrialize, which means it's always going to be a poison type, unless something uses Soak on it, in which case leftovers is better. But Soak is much rarer than Trick, so we're going with Black Sludge. With Clodsire. Now, also, it's an unusual moveset, right? We've got this Unaware set. We just need Recover so that we can actually do something. But yeah, it's Curse, Earthquake, Liquidation, and Recover. Kind of an offensive Clodsire. We've maxed out attack and special defense, so we're just going all in bulk. We can compensate for our weaker physical defense by cursing up. How do I here? That should be here. I don't know my way around the Scarlet and Violet. Do I even have a Black Sludge? I do. Good. There we go. Black Sludge. Sweet. I should check, I suppose, before Clodsire. learn set by breeding. I'm going to presume it's an egg move. Whoa. Let me like scroll across. Maybe I should zoom out. Here we go. Recover. Okay. Let's finish off this clodsire, aptly named Spinoza, and then I'll end the stream. So all we need is, they've made egg moves so chill now. We just need anything with recover. I don't even think it has to be in the same egg group. We just need. Could be in there. Where would I pull my? Oh, wait, Mewtwo's got recover, doesn't it? Will that work if I just have Mewtwo? It feels like so wrong to get an egg move from a Mewtwo, because that is in the undescribed egg group. But we'll give Mewtwo the Black Sludge for a minute. Give you a Mirror Herb. But I think it does work now. I think they've just made it so that you don't have to worry about egg group. You don't have to worry about actually breeding it down. You can just Mirror Herb it over. We'll test if that is really... Okay, so it's very benevolent of them to do that. All they really need to do now is put in like a bronze bottle cap, a rusty bottle cap that lowers your IVs to 0, and then it'll actually be bearable to like manually acquire Pokemon for competitive play. Okay, so if we create a tent, but they haven't done that, so have fun with your Ursalunas. One of the other things we're gonna have to do in this challenge, to make these two teams and then play them off against each other, is we're gonna have to play through Pokemon Sword, because I need an Urshifu, and I don't have an Urshifu Rapid Strike. I've only got an Urshifu Single Strike. So I'm going to have to make a new profile in Sword, or load into an existing one on it if I've got one, that it hasn't done the DLC yet, and beat the DLC and get a Kubfu and then evolve it, which is painful, but I mean, that's Urshifu. That's one of the many ways Game Freak inflicts psychological harm on the... I don't know why I'm trying to breed Mewtwo and Clodsire. That's not going to work. Should probably save too. Recover. We done it. Okay. Now normally I would immediately be PP upping recover, because that 5 PP looks like it's not nearly enough. However, if I pull up the battle, we can see that the Clodsire doesn't even use recover. It only uses Curse and Liquidation. But you never know when you might want this Clodsire, and I figure I now have it available. Or maybe I could do like viewer battles or something. Like you could fight me. That would be kind of fun. Viewer engagement. I would actually love to like fight some of you. I don't know. Maybe we can arrange that. I don't have the chat up, so I can't see if anyone's here. I know that my lovely Caitlin was here for a while, which is much appreciated. And we can have a battle, you and I. But other people in the audience too. I do have all these Pokemon on here. If anyone has like Wi-Fi enabled, like they've got like a game and they want to do a battle for the channel, you can, I guess, leave a comment here, and then we can do it, and then I'll put it on the channel, and then we can see who wins. I'll probably use like some meme thing or something, so like I won't take it too seriously. I'm not gonna go too try hard, but that could be fun. That's like audience engagement. I just never get to use all these Pokemon that I've trained up on this trip. I guess I could play Battle Spot. Maybe I should play Battle Spot. That sounds kind of cool. Battle Spot live on stream. Who am I bringing? This. Not with Mirror Orb. Is it restricted meta? Can I bring these 3? I guess I should bring 6. I actually have no idea. Bring meganium. What do we need? We need like... Oh, we'll probably need... yeah. We probably need this. And then we need like a second crazy restricted. Is that how this works? We can come back and change things. Oh, I guess I could bring Gladios, right? Coridon. Let me turn that off. How does this work? Link battle. Battle stadium. Casual battles. Ranked battles. Wow, I reached rank 1 last season. Whoa. It's actually some decent stuff. Single battle. It's restricted, right? I can't just like waltz in with any old team. Okay, that's okay. We'll go with this. We're rank 1, so I might win just by virtue of... I can't bring Jirachi, I don't think. I might win by virtue of my opponent not also having a terrible team, but I may also... I'll lose against anything actually. Meta if I bring this nonsense. But that sounds kind of fun, so let's do it. And then I'll end the stream. Life Orb for Mewtwo. And then I think this is like Choice Band coded, or maybe Choice Scarf. Yeah, my Coridon is Choice Scarf coded. And then Golden Go, I think it's Item Clause, isn't it? Oh. Okay, well in that case, I should not run Wo-Chien. I should run special, physical, da-da-da. Who else do we have? And it's 3v3, so some things won't even be good. These are not trained up. Can I bring Latios? Maybe. That might not be restricted. Kind of does the same thing as Mewtwo, though. I'm really weak to... I don't have a ground resist. Yeah, I need a ground resist. Gliscor. Ogerpon sounds good. Then air balloon. Balloon. See, as soon as I stop talking about Spinoza, my commentary just loses a significant amount of vim. Because now I'm actually thinking about what I'm doing. Whereas before I was just riding the high of the sheer unadulterated joy that the name Spinoza evokes within my soul. Probably because I and Spinoza, and in fact all of you and all the world and this air balloon which is held by this Lucario, we all are made of one and the same substance. We are mere modifications of the single universal substance that Spinoza would call God, a view that got him exiled from his country by the church for being a heretic at the time, I believe. That's probably a simplification of what happened, but Spinoza was, for all he talks about God, I mean, the whole first chapter of his book, first of 5 parts, is called On God, and he's trying to establish what God is. For all he's doing that, he was kind of an atheist, especially compared to the established church of the 1600s Europe where he lived. his idea of God is kind of synonymous with nature, synonymous with existence itself. And so he was a heretic, and he was like, he suffered quite immensely for his outlandish views. But I mean, I think it's pretty clear, as he says, that as long as you're not too loose with your thinking, it's pretty obvious that maybe no one. Oh, it's pretty obvious that he's right, and in fact, there is only one substance. Okay, well, this looks like a good matchup for me because they have brought slacking and I have brought Mewtwo. Who am I going to bring? They have Horlucha. How are they proccing on Burden? I'm not sure. I'm going to bring Spinoza, of course. Do I want to lead with Spinoza, though? Maybe not. I guess I'll lead with Coridon and then bring... Is it double restricted? That's disgusting. That's disgusting. Double restricted and you bring 3. Oh, I don't like that. So Spinoza, what does it lose to? It can't really deal with Altaria. Okay, so maybe I actually want Ice Beam Mewtwo then. It can't deal with Altaria. It's okay into... It kind of loses to a Abomasnow too. Yeah, let's do this. But actually, let's lead with Ogerpon. There we go. Yeah. So this is going to be a battle where we demonstrate the power of Spinoza. We've done our theory for the night, and now we're going to get to learn about how to implement Spinoza's kind of axioms and definitions and the concepts of substance and essence in a practical setting such as low ladder in Pokemon. Do I just Swords Dance? What is it going to do? I'm greedy. I'm not afraid of this Altaria. I don't know. Is it going to Brave Bird me? I guess it's super effective, but like... Are they doing Perish Trap in singles? That is not going to work. I feel like they may have queued into the wrong... How is this going to work? I feel like I don't even mind if they trap me. I don't know how they're going to trap me. And I feel like I'm just going to destroy them now. But I'll probably let Ogerpon die to the Perish Song because I want to give my opponent some satisfaction in life, and it would be pretty mean to just sweep them with Swords Dance. Also, I want clodsire to do something. Well, having said that, my opponent's making it very hard for me not to just win. It's really difficult to... Like, I'm trying to lose, but... Come on, don't have a Abomasnow, that would just be sad. Maybe if they have a Abomasnow, they'll Terra Water. Oh, Sizzle. Okay, well they... This is a bit sad for them. I'm gonna switch. I'm deathly afraid of Sizzle. I just want to use Spinoza, and I feel like it would be... Could they beat me if they had, like, Choice Scarf Bug Bite and they outspeared? Maybe? Oh no, I'm not even weak to Bug. Okay. But this looks good. Okay, so this is the power of Spinoza. Now, Black Sludge, some people like to call it the substance. Black Sludge is kind of the essence of reality. And what you're about to witness is that there cannot be more than one clodsire, because that would require one clodsire to have created the other clodsire, and that violates definitions 3 and 5. Therefore, I'm just going to torment my opponent for a little while. Sorry, opponent. This is the funny bit where they try to Swords Dance, but I'm unaware, so I don't mind. I should be unaware. If I'm not unaware, then I've made the clodsire wrong. Yeah, I'm unaware. So they can sort of, we'll do another curse for fun. Okay. Uh-oh, they're +4, and I'm only +2 defense, and clodsire is not renowned for its physical bulk. Unfortunately, I haven't really noticed yet that they've sword stance. I'm kind of unaware of that feature. So for now, it's life as usual for clodsire. Oh, they're terrestrializing. What will they become, I wonder? They are... Oh, they're going for the Terror Bug. They're going for the +4 Terror Bug X-Scissor, which should do almost as much as it was doing before I boosted the +2 attack. Okay, so my opponent is deeply threatening to me, as you can tell. They now resist ground, but it's okay, that's why we've got liquidation. What's our terror type? Steel. I feel like it shouldn't, well, doesn't really matter. I guess we'll just curse up some more. They'll probably hit me with another swords dance, but I don't really notice such things, so I just kind of chill out. I do love clodsire, and he does kind of strike me as a Spinoza type individual. I don't know if I've been leaning back, so my audio might have been quiet, and suddenly you've got louder because I sat back up. I don't know if this will sort of awaken some necessary consequence of being a clodsire, but I do have to say that he's enjoyable. Okay, and then one more liquidation will seal their fate. And this is the power of clodsire. I mean, sometimes you go up against Terrorbug, Swords Dance, Sizzle, or in a restricted format when that's the best Pokemon. Clodsire is kind of the champion, I would say. I don't mind my edgy trainer card. I was playing the heal against my brother, who was playing the kind of hero in the JoJo standoff when we... Oh, I don't really want to continue battling. No, I don't really want to. I want to go finish... I was watching a ContraPoints video about parasocial interaction. Okay, well, we're doing another one. And then I got to go to bed, and I got to go watch the ContraPoints video. I think I'm going into work tomorrow. I spent the last 2.5 weeks, like, mind-numbed from the combination of medication withdrawal and biological statistical analysis. But I'm done with my stats. I've got my bioindicators. The strongest indicator of... Okay, they've got Miraidon. GU looks really good into... It has to be Koraidon, I think. Does Ogapon look good? It kind of looks good into Calyrex Ice, maybe? Does Grunky Kong look good? What does Grunky Kong do? Okay. Okay. We're gonna play a bit of stall, I think. I think the better play would be to bring Mewtwo as well, because then you've got Ice Beam into Miraidon. However, Mewtwo might just get one shot by Electro Drift, now that I think about it. Now the good thing for us is that I'm Choice Scarf Koraidon. So, do I have Outrage? I'm Choice Scarf Koraidon, so I should outspeed them. Which I like. What's my team? Yeah. Do they have a Dragon Resist? They've got a Guizing. But if they switch into Guizing, I'm okay with it. Here's the Terra. What's it gonna be? Ah, nice play by them. Okay. See, I'm not equipped with the meta, but Terra Fairy is a clean play. Gleam. Oh, I'm 4 times weak to it. That's kind of cool. And their Scarf as well. Okay, well, I don't feel so bad about that, because the fact that I clicked Outrage into Terra Fairy didn't matter, because they're Scarf Miraidon. I can now go into Clodsire, because they should be locked into Gleam, and What do I actually click? I think I just click curse. Clodsire does pretty well into Maridon, but it doesn't so much like Calyrex Ice. However, I've got Terra Steel. We're two Never Three Berries. And I don't know. I mean, the problem with Clodsire is that even like in a perfect world, its defense stat is pretty low. So I'm going to need like a lot of curses to withstand this thing. But we're just going to send it because it's the Clodsire video. I mean, I spent the whole day like grinding up this Clodsire. I don't want it to just be for waste. So here's our Steel type Clodsire. Now in the actual battle, I have no idea what Terra type it was, but I figure that this Terra Steel Clodsire is probably all good. That's looks pretty good to me. We're just going to keep cursing. We're going to rely on Clodsire's natural special bulk to take a hit from Maridon. Clodsire is very specially bulky. Ah, but we've got Black Sludge. Right, I was just saying earlier that you don't want Black Sludge with... okay, I think we instead lose. I wasn't planning on that, but I believe we now lose instead of winning. Oh, Jesus, okay. So this is called the chip of a lifetime. I was just saying how with Black Sludge, you usually don't want to terrestrialize because you'll take damage. But I wasn't planning on terrestrializing this thing until I brought it into this battle, and now we're going to lose. That's unfortunate because I was really hoping to see Clodsire kind of pop off. But instead, it's going to take like a quarter of its health per turn for no reason. Just because it thinks that's funny. Ooh, okay, Lando maybe? I would probably go into Lando if they brought it. But it could be Mewtwo as well. Oh, Chi-Yu, okay. This is good. I clicked Earthquake. Nice. Man, I think I would actually 3-0 them with this Clodsire if I had leftovers instead of Black Sludge. Which is sad. Yeah. That's very sad. I wonder if... okay, they get their terrain back up. I presume Electro Drift kills from this range. But I don't think there's much I can do about that. I think we just kind of go for it. I mean, Clodsire is on a timer. I've only got 4 recover PP. I think we lose. But you can see how good Clodsire would be if I had given it a leftovers instead. I think this kills. We're pretty specially bulky, though. Whoa, we take it. Good job, Clodsire. +2 Earthquake from, like, no base attack. I mean, I've seen worse. Okay, and you can see the Black Sludge tech there. If we didn't have Black Sludge, we would have died to Leech Seed, which would have healed up Maridon. But instead, we died of Black Sludge, and the Maridon gets nothing. I don't think we can take... I think we soul cure. I don't think we can take 2 Electro Drifts, though. So I think this is it for us. Because... yeah, soul cure is not going to kill. Wow, the real game takes ages for anything to happen. You're just sitting here watching the animations. That's okay. Fair play to my opponent. I should have given my Quagsire, my Clodsire, leftovers. But the thing about leftovers and Black Sludge is that they're both modes of the same substance. So I can't really be faulted for just changing the mode when the substance, of course, the eternal property of the healing item remained unchanged. I mean, there's a sense in which, you know, the fact that I lost that battle was necessary and would always have happened, and I might feel like I could have changed something to win it, but that's just not the case. I mean, if I just didn't have such a loose mind I would probably understand that I was always going to lose that battle in a heartbreaking fashion. Okay, and with that, I end the stream. Good night, my imaginary viewers. It's been a pleasure, and you might not exist, but because you are mere modifications of the substance, know that I conceive of you nonetheless.